Numerous people surround the demon named Fang Yuan and are determined to kill him for his heinous crimes. The battle lasts for 6 hours, and Fang Yuan explains how he was originally a Chinese scholar from Earth. He was transported into this world and had to endure a harsh life for 300 years, followed up by trying to survive for another 200. He explains how a demon is meant to be merciless and cruel, and he had completely failed in this regard. However, if the spring-autumn cicada that he had refined is effective, then he'll just simply be a demon in his next life. A flash of light erupts the entire battlefield, as we then cut over to a temple in a rainy day. The people inside the temple are discussing a ceremony that's meant to happen the next day, and they hope that a talented young genius would appear, as the Guyu clan hasn't had one in 3 years. They mention how some of the other villages have produced exceptional talents, especially the one named by Ning Bing from the Bai clan. He had managed to reach the level of a rank 3 Gu master in just 2 years, and that even the older generation are wary of his power. However, not all hope is lost for the Guyu clan, as a young genius had appeared in the Fang family. He could speak at 3 months old, walk by 4, and recite poetry at just 5 years old. The head of the clan overhears their conversation, and he predicts that the child named Fang Yuan would be able to rival Bai Ningbing. He would be the future of the Guyu clan, even if he got a B-grade talent. The head tells everyone to head back and rest well for tomorrow's ceremony, and they all start to plot about bringing Fang Yuan into their families. The elder reminds everyone to keep things fair during the ceremony, as they all leave the temple. Over at the village, Fang Yuan had managed to travel 500 years back in time. He explains that the spring-autumn cicada is used to reverse time, with it being ranked 7th among the 10 big mystical Gu rankings. Fang Yuan thinks that it's a pity that he had spent so much effort to refine the cicada, only for it to not actually travel back in time with him. He explains that Gu are magical items that come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. Some Gu can be used only a few times, while others can be reused over and over again as long as they aren't pushed to their limits. Fang Yuan isn't worried, since he managed to do it in his previous life. It means that he could do it again in his new life. Even without the cicada, he still possesses 500 years worth of experience along with knowledge of future events. However, he's currently just an ordinary mortal, and he'll need to borrow the clan's resources to cultivate faster. He decides to stay in the village until he's able to reach a rank 3 Gu master, and it's a good thing that he can get started soon with the awakening ceremony happening the next day. His younger brother suddenly comes into his room, wondering why he's standing by the window during the rain. Fang Yuan explains that his younger twin brother is named Fang Zheng, who had always been ordinary in comparison to Fang Yuan despite the two of them looking the same. Everyone around them only knew Fang Zheng as Fang Yuan's younger brother, causing Fang Zheng to become incredibly insecure. Their parents had died during a mission when the children were only 3 years old, and they were taken in by their aunt and uncle who had put them through harsh conditions while keeping their parents' inheritance for themselves. Fang Yuan decided to recite some poems from his previous life on Earth, which made people think that he was a genius. Their aunt and uncle suddenly started to treat them better, but Fang Yuan knew that they had no love for the two brothers. Fang Zheng was too naive, and he began to build resentment towards Fang Yuan. When it was revealed that he had a grade A talent, he spent most of his time trying to suppress Fang Yuan. Meanwhile, Fang Yuan only had a C-grade talent, thus reversing the roles of how the two brothers were treated. Fang Yuan had hated this in his previous life, however he has no care for it now. In this world, the strong will prey on the weak, and Fang Yuan will simply kill anyone who gets in his way. He tells Fang Zheng that he can leave, and Fang Zheng gets intimidated by his cold expression. He closes the door and quickly runs away. The next morning arrives, and Fang Yuan wakes up and opens his window. A girl greets him from the ground, and she tells him she'll wait for him to wash up. The girl helps Fang Yuan get dressed, but Fang Yuan is aware that she's simply a spy sent by his aunt. Fang Zheng suddenly walks in, and he sees Fang Yuan being dressed by the girl. Fang Zheng becomes jealous, and he wonders if the attendant girl named Xin Shui would one day treat him like how she treats his brother. Although Fang Zheng also has an attendant, his attendant is super old and wrinkled. Even then, he only got an attendant because Fang Yuan had requested one for him. Despite being a servant, Xin Shui is the daughter of Mother Shun, the caretaker of the entire household. Fang Yuan pushes Shen Shui away, and he reveals that he had developed feelings for Shen Shui in his previous life. However, he was immediately tossed aside by her after the awakening ceremony. He tells Shen Shui to leave, which got her annoyed. She slowly walks out of the room, and Fang Yuan asks Fang Zheng if he's ready for the ceremony. They walk through the village, and everyone starts to whisper about the two brothers. Fang Yuan pays them no mind. However, Fang Zheng is incredibly bothered by the gossip. He tries to reach out to his brother. However, his mere presence intimidates him. Fang Yuan explains how their aunt and uncle had tried to create a rift between the brothers in their previous life. They had succeeded in doing so due to Fang Yuan's lack of experience and Fang Zheng's naivety. However, he now possesses knowledge and perception rivaling that of immortals. He comes up with multiple plans to suppress Shen Shui, his brother, his aunt, his uncle, and even the clan elders. However, he doesn't feel like doing any of that, as everyone ultimately serves no purpose for him. As long as they don't stand in his way, then he doesn't need to care about them. A huge crowd gathers outside the temple, and they are all led inside a giant cave. Hundreds of years ago, the Guyu clan migrated from the central lands to the southern border, eventually settling on Qingmao Mountain. They discovered a spirit spring inside the underground cave, which produced a bunch of primeval stones. The instructor explains that everyone who's called on must walk through the river to the opposite bank. The further you walk, the better your talent is, which could potentially change someone's life. The first person named Guyu Chenbo gets called on, and he only manages 3 steps. It's not enough for him to become a Gu master, and he walks away in disappointment. Fang Yuan explains that not everyone has the talent to become a Gu master, but 5 out of 10 people having talent would be a good ratio. The Guyu clan's ratio is around 6 out of 10, due to their ancestor being extremely powerful, thus carrying powerful genes. A boy named Guyu Mo Bei is called on, and he manages to walk 36 steps. This equates to a B grade talent, and his primeval C is 6/6, which means that he could be vigorously trained. The talents are split into 4 grades ranging from D to A. A D grade would be able to reach a rank 1 senior Gu master in 3 years, becoming the foundation of their family. A C grade would reach a rank 2 senior Gu master in 2 years, becoming the backbone of their clan. A B grade talent would often become the future clan elder, reaching a rank 3 Gu master in around a certain number of years that will not be named. An A grade talent would bring great fortune to the entire clan, reaching a rank 4 Gu master in around 10 years, and they're capable of competing for the position of the head of the clan. Mo Bei's grandfather gloats about his grandson to another clan elder named Qi Lian. An hour passes by, and the head of the clan is worried about the lack of rank 4 Gu masters in recent years. The 4th generation's clan head was the only rank 5 master, but he had perished alongside a flower wine monk and had left behind no descendants. Guyu Chi Chun is called on next, and he nervously steps forward. He manages to walk 36 steps, equating to another B grade. Qi Lian starts to laugh at Mo Chun, and Fang Yuan recalls that Qi Chun had been punished by the clan elders in his past life for cheating during the ceremony. Qi Chun only had a C grade talent, but his grandfather had faked the results to make it seem like a B grade. Fang Yuan reveals that he has numerous methods to cheat. However, he wouldn't be able to fake his cultivation speed, and he'd be exposed eventually. However, Qi Chun's grandfather is one of the 2 elders who holds the most authority in the clan, and he'd be able to cover for him. Qi Lian and Mo Chun had always competed against each other, and Fang Yuan knows that he could receive a reward from the clan for exposing Qi Chun's deception. However, he doesn't want to risk offending Qi Lian. Fang Yuan's name is suddenly called on, as it was finally his turn. According to legend, when the world was first created, it was filled with the predicaments of the wilderness. The first man emerged among the wild beasts, and his name was Renzu. The predicaments had wanted to eat him, and he also did not have the attributes to defend himself. He was forced to hide all day, until 3 Gu suddenly approached him. They had him exchange his life for their power. Renzu first gave away his youth to the biggest Gu, who granted him strength. Renzu was finally able to protect himself, and he was able to defeat many predicaments. However, his strength alone was not enough, and he decided to give his prime middle years to the most beautiful Gu in exchange for wisdom. He learned to consume the remains of the predicaments he killed, which allowed him to survive. However, Renzu soon grew old, and the strength and wisdom Gu soon left him after there was nothing left he could give them. Without strength and wisdom, Renzu soon became surrounded by the predicaments, as he was now too old to run. It was during his last moments that the final Gu had offered to help him, but Renzu says that he has nothing left to offer. The Gu tells Renzu that it has the smallest needs among the three, and that it only wants him to offer his heart. Renzu accepts the offer, and he was provided with hope. The predicaments were all afraid of hope, and Renzu would then offer his heart to hope whenever he faced predicaments. Back in the present time, Fang Yuan starts to walk across the riverbank, and the crowd starts to whisper about how the amount of hope Gu is less than they expected. Fang Yuan manages 27 steps, and he smiles at the success of the ceremony. The primeval sea aperture forms inside his body, which is what's used by Gu masters to raise Gu. Fang Yuan notes that the result is the same as in his previous life, and he walks back into the crowd. Everyone is shocked that a genius like Fang Yuan turned out to only be a C-grade talent, and the elders are especially infuriated. The head explains that the higher the expectations are, the greater the disappointment, and that the Guyu clan is no longer what it once was during the glory days. Fang Yuan had been completely devastated upon receiving a C grade in his past life. However, now he shows no care for it. Fang Zheng gets called on next, and he trips into the river from shock. The elder is disappointed at the performance of the two brothers, as Fang Yuan then lifts Fang Zheng up by his collar. He tells him that the road to the future will be very interesting, and walks away. Fang Zheng steps onto the field, and he surprisingly manages to walk 43 steps. This equates to an A-grade talent, and Qi Lian and Mo Chun starts to argue about adopting Fang Zheng. The clan leader interjects and claims Fang Zheng for himself. A week passes, and Fang Zheng is sat in class with the other chosen Gu masters. Fang Yuan, on the other hand, is sleeping through the class. The class starts to gossip about how Fang Yuan had been spotted wandering around the village while drinking wine every night. The teacher is disappointed at Fang Yuan's behavior, but he decides not to care as Fang Yuan is merely a C-grade talent. The teacher continues his class and explains that there have only been 2 rank 5 Gu masters in their clan. The first was the first-generation clan head and founder of the clan, while the second was the 4th clan head. Perhaps he could have even reached rank 6 if it weren't for the Flower Wine Monk. The Flower Wine Monk was another rank 5 Gu master, who was infamous among the demonic faction for being a rapist. He had traveled to Qing Mao Mountain a few hundred years ago and encountered the 4th-generation clan leader. The Flower Wine Monk was beaten, and he begged the clan leader to spare his life. The clan leader obliged to his request, but was then caught off guard by a sneak attack from the monk. The clan head killed the monk, but he eventually succumbed to his injuries. Fang Yuan had actually been searching for the Flower Wine Monk's corpse. In his past life, there was a Gu master who had turned to heavy drinking, and his body was lying completely drunk outside the village. His wine aroma attracted a liquor worm, and the Gu master ended up following the worm to a cave entrance. He ended up finding the Flower Wine Monk's corpse and his inheritance inside, which brought him many prosperities. Fang Yuan had been buying wine and wandering around the village every night in hopes of attracting the liquor worm. However, it had never appeared once. He wants to refine the liquor worm, as it'd be far better than the clan's Moonlight Gu. The teacher tells everyone that it's time to refine their Gu, and that everyone will be selecting a Gu worm after class. They won't be allowed to go back to class until they have refined their Gu, and whoever finishes first will be awarded with 20 primeval stones. The class rushes to line up to get their Gu worm, as having a Gu is the key to strength in this world. Fang Yuan explains that Gu are divided into 9 levels, and that all the Gu inside the room is rank 1. Rank 1 Gu masters can only use rank 1 Gu, and Gu are also required to be constantly fed. The Gu will be connected to the master's life, and that the master will suffer a huge blow if the Gu ends up dying. Fang Yuan had originally wanted to start out with the Flower Wine Monk's liquor worm, but he decides to just start with a Moonlight Gu for now until he finds the liquor worm. The Moonlight Gu is the specialty of the Guyu clan, and it was personally cultivated by them using a secret method. But despite being a specialty of the Guyu clan, the liquor worm would have been far more effective. Fang Yuan goes and buys more wine with primeval stones, the currency of the world, as well as tools to help Gu masters cultivate. Fang Yuan had almost spent all of his savings on wine, and he thinks back to the competition from the school for 20 primeval stones. Fang Zheng suddenly calls out to Fang Yuan and tells him that their aunt and uncle want to see him. Fang Zheng was originally shocked that a genius like his older brother had become a drunkard, but now he understood that Fang Yuan had simply been an ordinary man, and that he himself was actually the outstanding one. Fang Yuan's expression still intimidates Fang Zheng, and Fang Yuan simply walks by him to go back home. Their uncle and aunt meet with them back at home, and they decide to reward both brothers with 6 primeval stones each for turning 15 and becoming Gu masters. Fang Zheng thanks them, and their aunt offers to officially adopt the 2 boys. Fang Zheng gracefully accepts and starts addressing them as mother and father. Fang Yuan, on the other hand, declines their offer, much to Fang Zheng's shock. His uncle decides to give him 200 primeval stones as financial support, and Fang Yuan takes his leave. Fang Zheng tells his aunt and uncle that he'll try and convince Fang Yuan, but his uncle tells him that they're perfectly content with just having an A-grade talent as their son. Later that night, their uncle is furious that Fang Yuan had seen through their plan. The Guyu clan requires the eldest son of every family to inherit their inheritance once they turn 16, and it turns out that Fang Yuan's parents had left behind a large fortune after they passed. The inheritance was far more than 200 primeval stones, and Fang Yuan would have lost the right to inherit it if he had accepted the adoption request. The aunt asks her husband what they'll do now, and he tells her that they'll have to catch him making a huge mistake in order to expel him. The aunt questions how Fang Yuan will make a mistake when he's so clever, and her husband says that they'll simply have to frame him. Xin Shui brings Fang Zheng some bathwater, and she smiles over having won over an A-grade talent like Fang Zheng. The rain prevents Fang Yuan from searching for the liquor worm any further, so he decides to just start refining his moonlight Gu instead. Gu are considered to be living creatures, and refining it means trying to erase their will. The Gu will resist the process, which is why it took Fang Yuan 30 minutes to refine the Gu into a crescent. The Gu would have expelled all of Fang Yuan's primeval essence in about 6 hours, which would have been no different than just starting over. A Gu master has 2 ways to replenish the consumed primeval essence. The first method is just natural recovery, and the second method was to absorb the energy from a primeval stone. The limit of refinement for a C grade was only 30 minutes, and Fang Yuan can't risk refining anymore with only 6 primeval stones left. He decides it's best to just prioritize refining the liquor worm, as it would be far better than the moonlight Gu. Xin Shui suddenly shows up to his room, telling him that she had brought him food and wine. Xin Shui sits on top of Fang Yuan, and she offers to give her body to him. She drinks the wine and offers to feed it to him mouth to mouth. Fang Yuan sees through her scheme, and he starts to choke her. Fang Yuan knows that his uncle and aunt had sent Xin Shui to seduce and frame him, and he asks her if she thinks he's capable of killing her. Xin Shui is completely terrified of him, and Fang Yuan decides to spare her due to her being his servant for so long. Fang Yuan tells her to go find his stupid little brother instead, and he sends her away. Fang Yuan heads over to an inn, and he buys himself a room along with some food and wine. As a C-grade talent, he'll need a bunch of primeval stones to refine the remainder of his moonlight Gu. So even if he finds the liquor worm, he might not have enough stones to refine it. However, he still wants to search for it, as the flower wine monk's treasure could contain a bunch of primeval stones. Another table nearby calls out to the waiter to bring them more wine, and the waiter tells them that it's going to be very expensive. He tells them that it costs 2 primeval stones for 1 jar, shocking the entire group. Another person makes fun of the group for not being able to afford it, and the group leader takes that on as a challenge. The waiter brings out the green bamboo wine, and the group leader panics as he didn't originally want to buy such expensive wine. He decides to buy it anyways, and the other person makes fun of him for only buying 1 jar for 6 people to share. The group leader challenges him to a fight, and the person stands up to reveal himself as a rank 1 Gu master. The Gu master picks up the wine, and the group leader quickly offers to give the wine to him. The Gu master smashes the jar, as he's furious over the fact that the group seems to be richer than him. Everyone in the group kneels down, and they offer up all of their primeval stones as an apology. Fang Yuan deduced that the man was a D-grade goo master, and it's likely that he specialized in logistics over combat. However, even then, he'd still be easily able to take on 6 normal humans, as the power gap between mortals and goo masters is too high. The goo master dares the group to try and drink the green bamboo wine, and Fang Yuan then proceeds to order a jar for himself. The goo master is infuriated, and he recognizes Fang Yuan as a fellow goo master. Fang Yuan simply takes the wine and leaves the inn. 300 years ago, there was a genius in the Guyu clan who had managed to reach the level of a rank 5 goo master at a very young age. He was none other than the 4th clan head, who ultimately sacrificed himself to protect his people from another rank 5 goo master called the demonic flower wine monk. The clan head defeated and spared the life of the monk, but the monk launched a sneak attack on him. He killed the monk in rage, but he also ended up dying from his wounds. In Fang Yuan's past life, a drunken goo master would end up collapsed outside of the village after his lover rejected him. The scent of the wine attracted a liquor worm, who led the goo master to the flower wine monk's remains and treasure. His cultivation ended up soaring after obtaining the worm, and his lover also returned to his side. However, Fang Yuan had always found something to be off about this story. Why did the goo master report his findings to the clan, rather than keeping all the treasure for himself? Tonight is Fang Yuan's last chance to find the liquor worm, as he only has 2 primeval stones left. He starts to pour his wine all over the place, but he still did not find the liquor worm. He remains unbothered, as he starts to walk away. He suddenly hears the sound of rustling, and he spots the liquor worm on a nearby bamboo stalk. He continues to observe the worm, until it became very intoxicated. It starts to fly away, as Fang Yuan chases after it. The liquor worm leads Fang Yuan to a waterfall, and he squeezes his way through a tight crack. He finds some wine sack flower goo and rice pouch grass goo inside. Goo comes in all sorts of forms. Some resemble minerals, some resemble worms, and some resemble plants. Fang Yuan grabs the liquor worm, who led him to the corpse of the flower wine monk. He tries to dig out his body, when someone suddenly yells at him. Fang Yuan realized that he's been followed, and he immediately suspects Jiangya, the rank 1 goo master he encountered at the inn. However, Fang Yuan is still at the beginning stages of a goo master, meaning he's too weak to fight. The person tells Fang Yuan that he's already been poisoned by his goo, and Fang Yuan has no choice but to give up the liquor worm. He suddenly hears someone begging the flower wine monk to spare his life, and he realized that he was actually listening to a recording of the past. The flower wine monk had managed to defeat the 4th clan head with no struggle, who starts to beg for mercy. The flower wine monk says that he had originally came to the clan to trade fairly, but they were the ones who had attempted to poison him. The clan head promises to serve the monk for eternity, and the monk decides to make a deal with him. He tells the clan head that he wants to be provided with 3,000 stalks of moon orchids and 3,000 primeval stones every week, and that he'll stop by every now and then to collect the payment and suppress the poison he put on the clan head. The clan head grabs onto the monk's leg, thanking him for his mercy. The monk feels a jolt of pain, and he punches the clan head in the face. The clan head had placed a moon shadow goo on the monk, which is able to restrict the primeval essence of someone. The monk kills the clan head in rage, as the rest of the clan then attacks the monk. Fang Yuan concluded that the flower wine monk probably used a photo-audio goo to record the interaction. He realized that the previous goo master who had found the recording was scared about being executed for discovering the truth, so he had reported it to the higher-ups. Fang Yuan decides that he's going to keep the treasure for himself, as he doesn't care if he's discovered. He loots 15 primeval stones from the monk's corpse, with his biggest gain being the liquor worm. Fang Yuan's not surprised that the previous goo master had reported his findings, as the reward from the corpse was way too small. The goo master had been a rank 3 goo master, while the liquor worm was a rank 1 goo. The value of the worm may have been like nothing to him, but it's huge to Fang Yuan. He starts to reconsider handing over the recording to the clan, but he decides that there's no one in this world to rely on other than yourself. Fang Yuan's next goal is to refine the liquor worm, as it would qualify him to stay at the academy and borrow their resources. Refining the moonlight goo would take around 5 to 8 primeval stones, while the liquor worm requires around 11 to 16 stones. Fang Yuan currently has 17 stones, and refining the liquor worm would leave him with 1 to 6 stones left. Fang Yuan heads back to the inn, and he starts to refine the liquor worm. He struggles with refining it, despite it being a rank 1 goo. The worm had actually used to be a rank 5 goo just like the flower wine monk, but it fell to rank 1 due to years without proper food. The liquor worm had once already been fully refined by the flower wine monk, which means that Fang Yuan is essentially battling against the monk's lingering will. He determines that now he'll most likely need around 30 primeval stones, and he decides to go eat some food to take his mind off of the situation. Fang Zheng ends up finding him in the dining area, and he confronts him about what he did to Xin Shui. Fang Yuan ignores his brother, which causes him to lash out about how Fang Yuan is unfairly venting out his anger about being a C-grade goo master. Fang Yuan slaps Fang Zheng for forsaking his own older brother for a servant girl, and Fang Zheng is shocked that his brother had hit him for the first time in their lives. He tells his older brother that he can't blame him for how things turned out, and Fang Yuan retaliates by slapping him again. He reminds Fang Zheng of all the things he did for him during their childhood, and he then offers to sell Xin Shui to him for 6 primeval stones. Fang Zheng quickly accepts the deal, but he currently has only 5.5 primeval stones. Fang Yuan accepts it regardless, and he tells Fang Zheng to quickly disappear from his sight before he changes his mind. Fang Zheng smiles as he leaves, as he now finally has Xin Shui all to himself. Fang Zheng reports the situation back to his uncle and aunt, and his uncle starts to seethe with rage. He tells Fang Zheng that Xin Shui did not belong to Fang Yuan, and that Fang Zheng could have simply asked them about acquiring her. His uncle brushes the situation aside and offers to give Fang Zheng another 6 primeval stones. Fang Zheng leaves the room, and his uncle starts to crash out about what Fang Yuan did. His wife tells him to calm down, but he tells her that primeval stones are extremely valuable for Fang Yuan to ascend his cultivation. They need his cultivation to be as low as possible so that he'd be unable to seize the family inheritance, and the rewards provided by the academy are only given to exceptional students. His wife asks him why he's so scared of Fang Yuan when he himself is a rank 2 goo master, and he lashes out at her, saying that he's not allowed to suppress the younger generation as a senior of the clan. The clan rule states that one needs to reach the middle rank stage of cultivation to become the head of the house. The uncle is surprised at how smart Fang Yuan is, and he tells his wife to start treating Fang Zheng better from now on. He can sense resentment towards Fang Yuan inside of him, and he wants to use him to take down Fang Yuan. 2 days pass by, and Fang Yuan had spent 12 stones to only reach around 1/15 of the refinement progress. The liquor worm starts to counterattack, and Fang Yuan realizes that this is a good opportunity to greatly weaken the worm's will. A familiar presence suddenly appears, and Fang Yuan recognizes it as the spring-autumn cicada. He's surprised that the cicada had actually followed him back in time, and he explains that the cicada is a rank 6 goo that took him 30 years in his past life to refine. It turns out that the cicada had merely fallen asleep in Fang Yuan's body, and that traveling back in time 500 years had left it incredibly weak. If the cicada had been at its prime, then Fang Yuan's aperture would not have been able to handle it. Fang Yuan had been trying to refine the moonlight goo and the liquor worm this whole time, when it turns out that the spring-autumn cicada had been his vital goo. He would be a rank 1 goo master possessing a rank 6 goo. Although the liquor worm is one of the best choices for a vital goo, it is nothing compared to the spring-autumn cicada. However, Fang Yuan would die if he used it in his current state, but he is still able to make use of its aura. He unleashes the cicada's power on the liquor worm and manages to fully refine it. He then uses the cicada on the moonlight goo, fully refining it as well. He now no longer needs to rely on primeval stones, as all he needs to do to refine any rank 1 goo is to use the spring-autumn cicada's aura to suppress them. 15 minutes later, someone is knocking on the academy's door. The elder is woken up, and an attendant informs him that a student has managed to refine the moonlight goo. The elder asks if it was Fang Zheng, and the attendant confirms that it was someone from the Fang family. The elder is not surprised that it was an A-grade genius who won the competition, and he walks outside to greet him. He starts to compliment Fang Zheng, and he's then informed that the person is actually Fang Yuan. The next morning, Fang Zheng rushes over to the academy. He had spent 2 primeval stones, while cultivating for countless days to finally refine the moonlight goo. He's determined to make all those who look down on him, including his brother, to finally show him some respect. The attendants mistake Fang Zheng for Fang Yuan, and he gets caught off guard by the fact that his brother was just at the academy. Fang Zheng says that he's here to claim the top prize after refining the moonlight goo, but the attendants tell him that Fang Yuan had already claimed the prize last night. Fang Zheng is taken aback that a C-grade talent like his brother had managed to get first place. He doesn't understand how this happened, as he had worked so hard while his brother had spent every day drinking. The official leaderboard is revealed to the students, and everyone is shocked that a C-grade had managed to take first place. Over at the Mo family residence, the head is informed that Mo Bei had stopped trying to refine his goo. An attendant tells him that Mo Bei had lost all motivation after finding out that Fang Yuan had taken first place. The head says that Fang Yuan had only taken first place out of luck, and that Mo Bei should not let something as small as this be a setback for him. Over at the Qi residence, Qi Chen meets with his grandfather. His grandfather tells him to not let what happened get to him, as Fang Yuan had only succeeded out of luck. He and Qi Chen are both C grades, but Qi Chen has way more resources at his disposal, so he'll be able to surpass Fang Yuan in no time. His grandpa tells him that he'll use the aura of a rank 3 goo worm to help him refine the moonlight goo. 10 days pass, and the instructor is trying to demonstrate to the students how to use a moonlight goo. He tells everyone to move the goo to their palm using their minds, and then pour their primeval essence into the goo. He then launches the attack and slices a nearby training dummy. In his past life, Fang Yuan had cultivated to rank 6 and founded the Bloodwing Demon sect in the Central Continent. The Academy Elder was merely a rank 3 goo master, and the technique he's demonstrating was like child's play to Fang Yuan. The instructor then tells everyone to start practicing the attack, as numerous students all start to fire their attacks at the training dummies. They found the process to be very difficult, as their attacks all seemed to miss. Fang Yuan gets behind another student and launches an attack at the dummies. The head is sliced off, and it starts to regenerate as the dummy is actually a rank 1 scarecrow goo that has the power of self-recovery. The entire class is impressed, and the instructor asks the student Fang Yuan stood behind if he had fired the attack. The student awkwardly takes credit for it, and Fang Zheng is relieved that the attack was not from his brother. The instructor suddenly assigns this practice as a new assignment, and whoever performs the best will receive 10 primeval stones. 3 minutes pass, and the entire class is exhausted. The instructor explains that practice is the most important when it comes to producing the Moonblade attack. Those with a higher talent can store more primeval essence inside them, allowing for faster recovery and more time to practice. Those with a lower talent can compensate that by consuming primeval stones. However, those with lower talent and no stones are ultimately hopeless. The class is dismissed, and Fang Yuan heads over to the shop. He coincidentally ends up running into the Goo Master he had met in the inn. The Goo Master named Jiangya offers to sell a grass puppet to Fang Yuan for 3 primeval stones, but Fang Yuan is aware that the puppets are only worth 1.5 stones. The rest of the students are angry that Fang Yuan gets to cut the line, and they scramble to buy the puppets for themselves. They end up buying the whole stock, but Jiangya secretly tells Fang Yuan that there's an 8th puppet hidden underneath the chest. Fang Yuan tells him that he just wants to buy 10 moon orchid petals, and Jiangya agrees to sell them to him. Fang Yuan explains that goo need to be fed, and that the moonlight goo feeds on 4 moon orchid petals a day. The liquor worm, on the other hand, only needs 1 jar of green bamboo wine every 4 days, while the spring-autumn cicada is able to directly drink from the river of time. Fang Yuan does the math and figures that he'll only need to spend 1 primeval stone a day to feed all of his goo, and he currently has around 20 pieces left. Every weekend, the academy will deliver 3 stones to every student, so Fang Yuan will need to take the prize of 10 primeval stones from the upcoming assessment. The waiter suddenly tells Fang Yuan that the trading company will soon arrive at the village, and that they'd always purchase green bamboo wine from the inn. The inn has a limited supply of the wine, so there most likely won't be any left for Fang Yuan after the trade. This is bad news for Fang Yuan, and he decides to immediately buy 5 jars of the wine. 3 days passed, and an instructor is teaching the class martial arts. He summons a wooden dummy and tells the class to not be afraid when facing a huge enemy in close combat. He slams the dummy on the ground and says that they need to focus on disrupting the center of gravity of the opponent. The class is bored out of their minds, and the instructor is not surprised as the students only care about flashy techniques. Fang Yuan explains that the instructor lacks the proper discipline, which caused the whole class to stop paying attention. Gu are split into melee and ranged combat. Moonblades are ranged attacks, but each attack consumes around 10% of one's primeval essence. A rank 1 Gu master would not be able to fire off a lot of attacks, so the most reliable skill at this stage would be martial arts. The Moonblade assessment begins, and the instructor splits the students into groups of 5. The first group generated awful results, and the instructor calls on the next group. Mo Bei is in the next group, and he lands a direct strike on the dummy. Chi Cheng is up, and he achieved the same result. Mo Bei scoffs at Chi Cheng's performance, as it is now finally Fang Zheng's turn. Fang Zheng fires his attack and hits the scarecrow in its neck. He fires another attack, which hits the scarecrow in its chest. The students start to debate over which student will be first, and the final group with Fang Yuan finally gets called. The students brush Fang Yuan's previous performance down as luck, and Fang Zheng is determined to finally surpass his brother. Fang Yuan launches his attack, and it completely misses the target. The class starts to laugh at him, and the instructor starts to rethink his original worries about Fang Yuan. Fang Zheng realized that it was impossible for Fang Yuan to surpass him now with only 2 attacks left, and he's determined to keep on beating him over and over again. Fang Yuan's next attack lands a direct strike on the neck, which ends up decapitating the scarecrow. Fang Zheng is left flabbergasted, and Fang Yuan smiles. The instructor hands Fang Yuan his reward, and the class is angry over him getting first place again. The instructor tells the class that he'll teach them how to nourish their aperture in the upcoming days, which would allow them to advance their cultivation. It's explained that rank 1 Gu Master has a green copper primeval essence, a rank 2 has a red iron essence, and a rank 3 has a white silver essence. The jump from the essences are in multiples of 10, and the instructor explains that whoever advances to a rank 1 middle stage in the next 3 months will receive a reward of 30 primeval stones along with priority in choosing their second Gu. They'll also elect a class monitor and 2 vice-class monitors after 3 months, both of which will receive either 10 or 5 primeval stones. Class is dismissed, and the rest of the class knows that what really matters from the position of class monitor is the power, as everyone is required to bow and greet the monitor. Fang Zheng desperately wants to be class monitor, so that his brother will be required to bow down to him. However, Fang Yuan had disappeared, as he starts to mock the innate human desire for authority. He says that the most important thing in this world is the redistribution of resources. One will die without any resources, and primeval stones are the most important resource for Gu Masters. Fang Yuan blocks the exit from the class, and he tells everyone to hand over 1 primeval stone in order to leave. The rest of the students are enraged, and Fang Yuan responds by knocking one of them out. The students all charge at him, but Fang Yuan manages to beat them all up. Mo Bei and some other students show up to the scene, and Fang Yuan manages to defeat him as well. Although Fang Yuan's attacks knocked out all the students, none of them were actually seriously injured, demonstrating his 500 years of combat experience. The elder watches the entire scene unfold, and he does not plan on interfering as Fang Yuan has complete control over the situation. He says that as long as no one is dying, then there's nothing wrong with some fighting. The elder asked his attendants why they have never attempted to stop the fights of any students who have mastered combat in the past, and he tells them that it's because they were too weak. They only wish to stop Fang Yuan now because Fang Yuan is just a beginner, and the elder tells everyone that anyone who has the surname Gu is above them in every conceivable way. The elder fires the chief guard and says that there'll be a re-examination in half a month to appoint a new chief. The rest of the guards start to crave for the benefits of the position, and they all take their leave. Back at the battlefield, a girl threatens to attack Fang Yuan with a moonblade, but he reminds them that using Gu on academy grounds is strictly forbidden. Fang Yuan knocks out the girl, and the other one begs him not to hurt her. Fang Yuan asks her for a primeval stone, and the girl offers up all of her stones. Fang Yuan only takes 1 stone, and lets the girl go. Fang Zheng arrives on the scene, and he scolds Fang Yuan for bullying the other classmates. Fang Yuan tells his brother that everybody must pay one primeval stone, and Fang Zheng is surprised that he has to pay as well. Fang Zheng tells him that he doesn't need to, but he'll just end up like the rest of the class who've all been beaten up. Fang Zheng reports the situation back to his aunt and uncle, and his aunt suspects that Fang Yuan would be expelled soon for his actions. His uncle tells him to collect a primeval stone from the treasury to make up for the stone that he lost, and Fang Zheng takes his leave. He starts to wonder if he should plead for his brother to not be expelled, but he feels like his brother should face the consequences for his own actions. However, Fang Zheng then starts to consider how others would view him, as they may start to find him heartless for abandoning his own brother. His aunt happily tells her husband that Fang Yuan would definitely be expelled for his actions, but her husband tells her that there would most likely be no punishment for him at all. Battles are what determine everything in this world, so it is actually something that is widely encouraged. Waves of monsters would occasionally attack villages, and Gu Masters are tasked with defending them. A Gu Master has 9 great realms, from rank 1 all the way to rank 9. They're divided into 4 stages, consisting of the initial stage, middle stage, upper stage, and peak stage. Fang Yuan is currently a rank 1 initial stage Gu Master, but the Liquor Worm gives him the strength of around 5% of a rank 1 middle stage Gu Master. If he wants to convert all of his current essence into the middle stage, he'd need around 180% of initial stage essence. He'd need to rely on primeval stones a lot, so he plans on blocking the entrance every 7 days whenever the Academy would redistribute their allowance. Back in the Qi family residence, Qi Chen's grandfather asks him about the situation with Fang Yuan. Qi Chen tells his grandfather that the Academy had completely dismissed the situation and that he needs to help him vent out his anger. His grandfather says that he cannot help him with this, and Qi Chen assumes that it's because he needs to rely on his own strength. His grandfather says that it's because Qi Chen represents the image of the Qi family. His grandfather can assist him from the shadows, but Qi Chen needs to present a strong image for himself so that the elders would continue to support their family. His grandfather says that the best thing for him to do for now is to try and become the class monitor, and Qi Chen promises to do his best. 7 days pass, and Fang Yuan once again demands 1 primeval stone from everyone. Mo Bei challenges Fang Yuan to a fight, but he gets taken out instantly. Qi Chen steps in to fight as well, but he is also taken out along with the rest of the class. Fang Yuan collects his payment and leaves. Some time passes, and Mo Bei greets his sister who just returned from her mission. His sister notices the wound on his face, and she asked him who had been bullying him. Mo Bei says that his injuries aren't from anything serious, and his sister decides to seek out their grandfather. She asks their grandfather about the situation with Mo Bei, and he says that Mo Bei was beaten up twice at school. The sister asks who the perpetrator was, and her grandfather says that it was a boy with exceptional fighting skills, named Fang Yuan. The sister is surprised at her grandfather's lack of care for the situation, but he tells her granddaughter, Mo Yin, that failure is necessary for growth. He tells Mo Yin to not interfere with Fang Yuan, as it would damage the reputation of the Mo family. She agrees, as we then cut over to Fang Yuan over at the inn. A man seeks him out at the inn, and he tells him that the Mo family's young miss is here to settle the score with him for beating up Mo Bei. Fang Yuan ignores the man, which ticks him off. Mo Yin enters the inn, and she tells Fang Yuan that she'll personally treat him to a knuckle sandwich. However, Fang Yuan tells her that he's not actually who she's looking for, which catches her off guard. Mo Yin realized that the boy is actually Fang Zheng, which is why he had shown no fear. Fang Yuan says that he'll take her to the school's hostel to find the person they're looking for, and Mo Yin agrees to follow him. A majority of Mo Yan's group is stopped outside the school, as only Gu Masters of their clan are allowed entry. Mo Yin gets ticked off, and the guards allow her to bring one servant inside with her. Mo Yin decides to bring her servant Gao Wan, and they both follow Fang Yuan inside. He brings them to an empty room and tells them that he's the one they're looking for. Mo Yin tells Fang Yuan that he can't stay inside forever, but he tells her that she can't stay outside forever either. He opens the door, daring Mo Yin to come get him, but Mo Yin doesn't fall for his provocation. Fang Yuan starts to cultivate right in front of her, which triggers her. She then orders her attendant Gao Wan to stand watch, as she decides to go back home. Some time passes by, and Fang Yuan finally decides to come out. Fang Yuan and Gao Wan starts exchanging blows, which wears them both out. Gao Wan laughs as it's forbidden to use goo inside the school, which is why Fang Yuan is no match for him. Fang Yuan's body is still that of a teenager's, so he has no choice but to activate his moonlight goo, saying that he doesn't care about the rules. He launches an attack at Gao Wan, which cuts open his arms. Gao Wan is shocked, as only a middle-stage goo master would be capable of performing such feats, as he then starts to scream for help. The guards hear him screaming for help, but they decide to ignore him as he's only a mere servant. Fang Yuan launches a fury of moonblade attacks, which results in Gao Wan being decapitated. The guards are all shocked that Fang Yuan had actually killed Gao Wan, as he then orders them to give him their sword. Fang Yuan then grabs Gao Wan's body and drags it away to another room. The next day, people are discussing the incident, and Mo Bei starts to shake in fear. The elder calls for Fang Yuan, and Fang Yuan apologizes for breaking the academy rules by using the moonlight goo. The elder demands to know what happened with Gao Wan, and Fang Yuan says that his actions were out of self-defense, as Gao Wan could potentially be a spy from another village. The elder then asks about Gao Wan's corpse, and Fang Yuan explains that he had sliced up Gao Wan's corpse to deliver to the Mo family. Over at the Mo family, Mo Yan's grandfather starts to scold her over the incident, but Mo Yan says that Gao Wan's death doesn't matter as he was only a mere servant. Her grandfather orders his attendants to bring over a box, and he tells Mo Yan to open it. Inside were the remains of Gao Wan, and Mo Yan's grandfather explains that this is a form of provocation from Fang Yuan. The box only contains a small part of Gao Wan's corpse, and any further escalation from the Mo family would result in Fang Yuan placing the rest of the corpse up at the front gate of the Mo family. Over at Fang Yuan, he laughs as everyone in this world is merely a pawn to him. A new day arrives, as a bunch of merchant caravans arrive in the village. Everyone is enamored by Jia Fu of the Jia clan, who is a rank 4 Gu master. The Guyu clan's rank 4 master, Guyu Bei, greets Jia Fu. A bunch of people are browsing through the merchants, including Fang Yuan, as he only has 98 primeval stones left. Fang Yuan remembers that in his past life, someone had spent 10 primeval stones on a purple gold fossil, which happened to have a mudskin toad inside, which was then sold for a small fortune. Fang Yuan tells the attendant that he wants to buy some rocks, and he starts to open a couple of rocks using his moonlight goo. The rocks are all worthless, as there are only 3 rocks left. Fang Yuan opens the next rock, which reveals something shiny. However, it turned out to just be nothing again, leaving everyone disappointed. Fang Yuan opens up the second rock, revealing the mudskin toad inside. Someone suddenly stops Fang Yuan, telling him that he'd be personally buying the mudskin toad. The man turned out to be Jia Jinsheng, the half-brother of Jia Fu, which means that he personally owns the rock gambling business. He's also a rank 1 Gu master, and he offers to pay 40 primeval stones for the mudskin toad from Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan tells Jia Jin that forcefully trying to buy something would be against the rules, which gets the whole crowd to turn on him. Jia Jin quickly takes back his words, but he tells Fang Yuan not to blame him if nothing's inside the toad. Fang Yuan completely ignores him, and he unearths the toad, revealing it to be a goo worm. Jia Jin is completely shocked, but he plans on undermining the value of the toad to buy it from Fang Yuan for a lower price. However, Fang Yuan then shows that he's very knowledgeable, and Jia Jin reluctantly buys it for 500 primeval stones. Fang Yuan leaves with the money, leaving the final rock unopened. The next day, Fang Yuan ends up missing the stock of intimate grass that he had wanted to buy. Some merchant nearby is advertising his wine, and Fang Yuan decides to check it out. He orders a cup of monkey wine, and he summons his liquor worm to have a drink. Everyone is shocked upon seeing the liquor worm, as Fang Yuan smiles. One of the servers asks Fang Yuan if he's planning on selling the worm, and he shakes his head no. The server wants to discuss an offer with Fang Yuan, but he simply walks away without saying a word. Later that night at the merchant caravan, there is a commotion over a dishonest merchant selling fake goo. The merchant turned out to be Jia Jin, as someone is accusing him of selling him a fake black boar goo for 250 primeval stones. However, Jia Jin tells the customer that it's actually his fault for thinking that such a powerful goo would be sold at such a low price. Jia Fu suddenly shows up, and the customer informs him of the situation. Jia Fu apologizes to him and offers double the amount of the primeval stones he lost. He then tells the customer that the black boar goo is extremely rare and that trying to find one that costs only 250 primeval stones is completely unrealistic. Jia Fu pleads with the crowd to be more tolerant towards Jia Jin, as he is still young and foolish. Jia Jin gets upset, and Fang Yuan plans to take advantage of that. Jia Jin later starts to drink over his frustration with his brother, when Fang Yuan suddenly approaches him offering to help. Fang Yuan tells Jia Jin that he can help with his issue of wanting a larger share of the assets, and Jia Jin is confused on how Fang Yuan is even aware of the issue. Fang Yuan tells him that the Jia family's business is common knowledge, and he explains that the Jia family head was someone who had built his fortune entirely through merchant caravans. The family inheritance would be divided according to the achievements of the children, and that the eldest son Jia Fu and the second son Jia Gui were both equally talented to a point where neither of them could gain an advantage over the other. The two sides kept fighting over the inheritance until eventually both brothers had died. Fang Yuan then whispers something to Jia Jin, which causes him to get suspicious. Fang Yuan offers to speak with Jia Fu instead, but Jia Jin eventually decides to cooperate. Fang Yuan wants 2,000 primeval stones, but Jia Jin refuses as the mission is too risky. Fang Yuan says that the greater the risk, the greater the reward, and Jia Jin reluctantly agrees. The two of them eventually arrive at the waterfall where the flower wine monk's corpse is. Fang Yuan shows Jia Jin the true story of the flower wine monk, and Jia Jin asks Fang Yuan what he gained from all of this. Fang Yuan says that he only obtained a liquor worm, but Jia Jin sees through his deception. He tells him that he recalled the flower wine monk possessing a 1,000-li earthwolf spider, which is a rank 5 goo that specializes in burrowing underground. The spider was what gave the flower wine monk his mobility, and Fang Yuan acts surprised about all this information. Jia Jin theorizes that this cave that they're in was dug out by the spider, and that it must be hiding in here somewhere. A recording of the flower wine monk suddenly starts to play, and he offers his entire inheritance to whoever annihilates the entire Guyu clan. Jia Jin starts to think of all the benefits he'd gained from this. However, he realizes that Fang Yuan is also a part of this deal. He decides that he's going to have to kill him. However, Fang Yuan ends up decapitating him before he could even make a move. Back at the Guyu clan, the merchants all start to leave, with no one remembering or caring about the status of Jia Jin. But Fang Yuan concludes that Jia Fu will eventually notice and will come back to investigate, so he'll need to prepare for when that time comes. Fang Yuan shows some regrets over killing Jia Jin, as he would have been a great pawn.